Welcome back to the Nautic Ed podcast. This is Grant Hedefin, Global Director of Education. And today on the line, you've got two Kiwis, not one, but two. So one being myself, as you can probably tell. And the second one is Nick Olson. And Nick is from a really well-known company. It's called Predict Wind. And it's one of the leading predictive wind companies out there and weather companies out there for sailors, right? So you're going to go sailing, you want to know what the weather's going to be like. So why don't we pull up the Predict Wind app? And so what we want to do is have a really good discussion with Nick about how to predict weather, how to use the tools that we're going to make available to you, and just start to understand weather a little bit more. So hey Nick, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us along here to do this today.
Yeah. So, Nick, you're in Auckland, New Zealand right now, right?
Yep, Auckland, New Zealand. I haven't flown the nest like you.
Yep.
Much of Predict Wind is based here in Auckland, New Zealand, but we do have some people in Australia and some people in Europe. A global company.
All right, yeah, fantastic. And that's exactly right. You are a global company. So how long have you been around for?
12 years. And yes, we are global, and the US would be our biggest market.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so tell me in a few words, what is Predict Wind, first off, and then maybe, why some of our listeners should take some notice here, because this is awesome.
Yeah. So Predict Wind is a weather forecasting set of tools. So we have the best weather models in the world, and we have high resolution weather modeling. But a really important thing about having really great information is being able to deliver it in a simple and understandable manner. And so we spend a lot of our time developing software that makes it easy for marine users to get the best weather data, essentially, and have the tools to interpret it and use it.
Right. So, and we were talking just before, you go attend a weather seminar and you walk out of that seminar going, I think I know some stuff now. But then maybe next week or next month, then you've kind of forgotten most of it. And then, you got to look at the weather one day and you're like, okay, what's it going to be like?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's definitely, weather's a huge topic, and you can go, there's people that dedicate their lives to it. It can be very, very complex. And our goal is actually to make complex weather simple and easy to understand. That's actually part of our company ethos is to do that, so that have that best the best information you can get, but actually make it digestible and ready for people to use.
Right, and so the key comes down to, and this is probably why you've been successful, is just the interface, right? To a regular person who doesn't deal with weather every day. They're not a meteorologist, and so they're able to pull up this interface on their phone and say, right, I understand exactly what's going on, right?
Yeah. So we have a bunch of different parameters and different kinds of tools. Not everyone likes to use the same things. When we started Predict Wind, when John Bilger started it 12 years ago, he came from an America's Cup background, and they had all this great weather modeling. All these great weather models, and he thought, this is going to be easy. We've got the best data, so we'll just, everyone will just want it. And then he realized really quickly that it was actually it was about delivery. And so, as you say, we spend most of our time putting a huge amount of effort into making that delivery easier. And so we have a lot of people, anyone that works on the front side of Predict Wind is a sailor. So I've got colleagues that are ex-Volvo ocean race sailors, delivery skippers, people, they do a lot of cruising now when we let them out, and that sort of thing. Personally, I'm a dinghy sailor. I take my kids sailing on the weekend, and I also do a bit of two-handed offshore sailing. And being sailors, we know what it's like to be out there. We know that it's how important the weather is and the role that plays in safety and our enjoyment. And so, yeah, having that sort of background and that culture in the company of sailors. And then we're also, something else that we really like to focus on is our customers. We're very customer focused. We like listening to what people have to say. Sometimes the most difficult customers actually turn out to have, some really great point as to, why are we doing it like that when we could actually change that and it would make a lot of sense for everyone. So, yeah,
definitely
that interaction with our customers and the sailors in the company are really what help to make the whole PredictWind ecosystem a usable piece of equipment and tools.
Yeah, no, look, that's fantastic, and I can definitely relate to that. At Nautic Ed, we've got tens and tens and tens of thousands of students, and we want to make it so that, at the end of the day, look, if you make your system so easy to understand, then you get less customer service calls because people understand already, right? So that it's kind of, a self-fulfilling prophecy when you make things easy to understand, right, with the interface.
Yeah, certainly. The easier, the better. I guess as I started off saying that weather can be an incredibly complex topic, but it doesn't need to be. And, you can take your understanding to whatever level you want to. But really, if you use what we offer and learn how to use that, you can be very proficient at understanding what's going on around you.
Right. And for the listeners, look, we're not really trying to make this into an advertisement for a PredictWind, right? So what we're trying to do is say, look, you're going to be a competent sailor. You need to be able to know what's going on with the weather today when you go out, or you're planning to go out next week, or you're planning a sailing vacation in Greece or the Caribbean or whatever. Okay, what's going to be happening in a week from now? What's happening in a couple of days from now? If we go this route over to that island, what's going to be happening in that location in 2 days? Or even, okay, so I'm going to be anchoring in this bay. Is the wind going to turn around in the night and run me ashore? I even remember one time we were in Greece and we were trying to decide which side of the pier, because there was a finger pier that came out into the ocean, and so we're like, well, which side should we med more up to? And so I just pulled out weather app and looked, okay, what's happening through the night, and sure enough, the wind was going to spin through the night, and so we actually med moored on the windward side of the pier, so that we'd have a nice sleep as it swam. So it's just good as a sailor. You've got to understand what's going to be happening. And so, we've got we've got one very specific global weather course on Nautic Ed. And look, that's a great course and it does help you understand the weather. But, coming out of that course, you're never going to be able to yourself, with your knowledge, predict what's going to go on in the next few days. So, it just comes back to, you need to have a tool that you can use to predict exactly what's going on. And we're saying that PredictWind is the best one out there. So I'm sure you'd agree with that, Nick.
Yeah, well, there's lots of weather apps out there, right? There's, there's you can go into the App Store and there's heaps of them. And, we're quite aware of that. And so we offer things that others don't, and so we have better weather models. So we have the ECMWF, which is the number one weather model in the world, and then we have Spire, which we've recently added. So that's the number one private weather model in the world globally. We did a big validation study on that, and then we have the UKMO, which lots of the national weather services use, Met offices around the world use. And so that's actually considered the number two global model behind ECMWF.
Hey, so then, just jumping in here, what's a weather model, just for everybody?
Okay, so a weather model is essentially an algorithm a pretty complex one that takes into account all sorts of parameters. So everything from the ground up to the upper atmosphere. So all the layers through the atmosphere, because obviously weather is affected by what happens up above, but also at ground level. There's land effects and there's heating and all that sort of stuff. So a weather model tries to encompass all of those things, and a global weather model will do that pretty well, but it is doing that for the entire globe. But to probably a step back from there is that people are like, well, how does it actually, where does it get its information from to start with? And so where they get the information from to start with is, from ships, from airplanes, from satellites, from balloon observations, from observations on the ground, and so all of that observation data is made into a digital file, which is called an initial conditions file. And so that initial conditions file, which is your snapshot of the world's weather at that particular time. So it's an actual reading of all the weather all around the world at that time. And that information is fed into a weather model. So you can put that same initial conditions file into different weather models and you get different results because they all have different physics going on inside them.
Right. So each weather model is written, it's software, right? So it's written by different entities saying, well, we think we have the best weather model because, we're taking into account this and this, and we know the, I guess you're looking at a frontal system that's coming in, and you've got a mountain range, and you've got a temperature, and you've got, this and that, and then that all feeds into the model and says, okay, so right here in this 10-mile zone, you're going to get, we predict with this software, you're going to get this weather over the next, day, 2 days, 2 hours, whatever it is, right? That's
yeah. So there's lots of weather models out there, but the good ones are proven time and time again with their accuracy. And so we're not into just throwing any weather model into what we have and what we offer our customers. We want the very best, and that's what we're delivering. And beyond that as well, we have global models, so they're running all over the globe, and there's different initial conditions files that get fed into these models. But another part of that is the resolution. So that's let's say ECMWF, for instance. It's broken the world up into 9 kilometre squares. The GFS 25 kilometre squares, and so for each one of those squares, it thinks everything's the same. And so obviously the smaller you can make those little squares, the more accurate they can be. And so at Predictwind, we have two models of our own, and for coastal areas, we run them at 8 kilometres and 1 kilometre resolution. And so at that 1 kilometre resolution, you can get, the effects of those cliffs over there, or, that big island there, or the acceleration in between two different land masses, but also, thermal effects. It'll pick up a sea breeze coming in and, in the afternoon and that sort of stuff, because it has all the land features in there, and it might know, even so far as going to, there's a lot of buildings there, or it's a dark coloured landmass, it's rock or whatever, and so that'll heat more than if it was just bush, for instance. So there's a lot going on, but they take a huge amount of computing power. So that's why everyone doesn't run 1 kilometre resolution models around the world, because the computing power involved in doing that is massive.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love living in the digital age, right? So this is all just digital technology applied, and look, I'm in Austin, Texas, so just down the road we got Houston and Galveston in 1910, I think it was, around that time. 10,000 people died with a hurricane in Galveston. I mean, that's just, that's shocking. And what happened to those people? They were just like, oh, look, the clouds are rolling in. Oh, the clouds are getting worse. Oh, there's a bit of wind going on. Oh, it's starting to rain. And within a day, 10,000 people are dead. And that just doesn't happen anymore. And even the weather models have got better and better over time, but having it down to 1 kilometer resolution, that's just awesome. I love that. So and again, we just want to tell people this is sort of how it works, right? This information is out there, and at your fingertips at any time, you can start to get this information, and you don't have to know, what's going on at the 500 millibar level, right? You don't need to know any of that kind of stuff. You don't have to. You can just pull out your phone and say, okay, well, what's the weather like this afternoon? We're going to go sailing. Let's go. So, man, that's awesome that you guys do that. And so you're running multiple weather models, right? And some, even on the app, you can say, well, what is this model saying and what is this model saying, right?
Yeah. So we're a big believer, yes, the weather models and the technology gets better and better all the time. And we're always, trying to be right at the cutting edge of that. And we're always, we're updating our models, or we've, adding in new models that are we validate them to prove that they are actually performing better. But no one weather model is ever right 100% of the time, and that's why we have multiple weather models, different sources, different initial condition files. And what do you do with all of that? Well, really simply, you can look for trends. So if they all agree, well, that's great, because you can be really confident, 6 weather models all saying the same thing, 6 really good weather models are saying the same thing, that's probably what's going to happen. But if you see a big, a divergence between them that they can't all agree, well, then you want to look at why, you can look at why they're not, why do you think they're not going to agree? Is it timing? Is there a front coming through? And maybe they think that, one model thinks it's going to come at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the others think it's going to come at midday. It's right. There's a bunch of factors around how you can read all that information, and we even have ways of we have a thing called the daily briefing that was created by my boss John. He was taking his kids sailing on the weekends, and he would always ask them on the way to sailing, well, what's the weather doing? And he's got 2 girls that sail, and they'd both give him different answers, and he found that really frustrating. And so he created an algorithm, or with our meteorologists, we created an algorithm that's actually giving a written forecast by doing exactly what I'm saying. It's looking at the trends, it's looking at the what the consensus is across the models. And so that's in a little thing that we call the daily briefing. So, that's sort of, with what we have, you can use it at a really basic level, or you can go the massive deep dive. I personally, I like to, I might look at the tables, and then I might go into the wind maps, and then I'll look at the gust maps, and then I'll look at the rain maps, and put all those factors together. I might look at the Cape map. If I see a frontal band coming through, which I can see because I can see a band of rain and a wind change coming, and then I might look at the Cape, and I might go, whoa, there's Cape in there. And
I think you're going to have to explain Cape.
Yeah, so Cape is convective available potential energy, and it's essentially how much energy is in the atmosphere. So if you see, for the example I'm giving there, if I see a frontal band coming through and it's got elevated Cape levels in it, I without getting into the details of what it is, and how it all works, I can just go, oh, look, so I can see all these factors are coming together here. It's actually going to be quite a nasty front, because I know that, the Cape levels are up. I've got heavy rain coming through. It's going to be nasty. Might have a bit of bang. So, and that can also be used if you're doing a passage. Let's say you're doing some island hopping in the Caribbean, or even you're just sailing locally. if you see those CAPE levels high, and then all of a sudden you see some black clouds rolling in, well, the forecast isn't gonna, the weather model, might have 10 knots all day in the weather model. But if you notice that you had high CAPE levels in there, you might even just see it in the tables. But then you see these black clouds rolling in towards you, it's time to put a reef in or furl that sail or whatever, because you're probably going to get hit by something pretty nasty. And having that little bit of information there can be the difference between it turning real bad for you and it being, you're getting a bit wet.
I can tell you a story that is right on topic with that. We were doing some training down in the Bahamas, and we're quite away from Abacos. We're probably maybe 100 miles south of Abacos Islands, and then around some other different islands. And we're sailing along, we're doing spinnaker training, and off in the distance we could see quite a few thunderstorms heading off and a little bit of lightning. And it was in the distance, but the chief instructor that we had with us said, probably prudent to pull the spinnaker down and we'll just sail on the main. And so we're just going along and laughing and talking and stuff, and then a microburst came ripping down out of the sky, not say 300 meters away from us, hit the water, basically exploded the water off on our starboard side, and then come ripping at us, and we saw the wind meter go to 70 knots from about 20 knots, right? So we're on a catamaran, so the hull lifted up, and at that time I went, okay, two things are going to happen. Either we're going over, or the mast is going to break. And fortunately, the sail shredded to pieces. So that would have been a high CAPE indication, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's a warning.
Yeah.
It's a heads up. Like if you saw that and you were doing an overnight passage, you might be like, well, actually, we're just going to sail with a reef in tonight, even if the average forecast, the wind in the forecast isn't high, because if you get that rolling through in the night, you might sail more conservatively.
Right.
Like if you had that piece of information and you saw those clouds, you'd be like, obviously you had someone with you that had seen this all before, but. So it's he had the experience to know that, but I mean, maybe you should have reduced the sail on the main as well, right?
No, we should have, absolutely, because it shredded it. So absolutely, we should have. There's your answer right there. We had to sail once it had gone. Well, and then we ran downwind, right, with bare poles and a extremely flapping sail. I think we had to cut it away. Just ran downwind on motors, and then once it had all gone, we put the head sail up and had to sail 100 miles back north through the night to get back home. So CAPE is like in the app, right? So you can see.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. We've got. You can. There's this. It's not. It's easy to say, oh, you have a weather app. It's like, I mean, I never really even say that, because we have. We're multi-platform. We have the Predict Wind app, which is what you have on your phone, or you look at that on the website. But then we also have the offshore app for when you are going out of cell phone range. And so if you want to, you can use satellite, that's designed to work with satellite comms, and saves all the data offline. So it's not just an app, and there is there's the guys in the Bondi Globe at the moment. They're using our stuff too. So whether I'm taking my kids sailing, on the weekend, or my wife is asking me, what should I wear a dress today? Or, she actually uses it herself. She doesn't want
to do a Marilyn Monroe today. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. There's no level that's too low, and there's no level that's too high. That there's a huge amount of information in there, and you can use as much of it or as little of it as you want. And we're just there to give you the tools to do what you want to do.
So what we're going to do, and I talked about this and agreed that in any of our weather modules in Nautic Ed and in our weather course, in Nautic Ed, we'll put a promotion code in those modules and courses where somebody can get a free usage of the weather app, and they're going to get the full on premium usage for 3 months, right?
Yeah. So we do have a free version. We call it a freemium version because it has a lot of awesome stuff in there. And then we have 3 different levels above that. And so, we're going to give anyone that does one of your courses, we're going to give them 3 months on what we call the professional version. So it's basically gives you access to everything we've got. So you can go for a real deep dive in there and, do everything from weather routing to departure planning and, look at ocean currents and against your weather routing, but also just use the, all the other features if you're just going day sailing, you've got, high resolution modeling and you can just set your location to where you are and look at the tables if that's what you want to do. But, or look at the wind maps and see how the wind might change during the day for wherever you're going to be. That's all awesome. That information is going to be there for you to use and try out.
Oh, I can hear a lot of people saying thank you right now. So let's jump over to weather routing. That's kind of a mysterious thing for a lot of people as well. Weather routing. What is weather routing? Give us a good high picture of what weather routing is.
Yeah. So weather routing is a tool that uses how fast your boat is going to go. So we use a thing called polars, performance polars, which is how fast your boat goes in any wind speed at any wind angle. We know what that is, and it will. There's a few ways that you can use it, but the way that it's commonly used is it will show you to get from point A to point B in the fastest manner through that weather system, based on how fast your boat goes. We also have another way that you can use that where it will actually avoid. You can put a parameter in there to avoid things. I'm a big fan of it showing me the fastest way to get there, because then I can use my seamanship to see, well, actually I don't want to go too close to that low over there or whatever.
I think you said the other day you said that you could put in like, okay, take me there, give me the best route, but make sure the wind doesn't go over 30 knots or it doesn't go over 25 knots, right?
Yeah. You can do that. You can put a comfort setting in there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but it also what and you could probably have a go at trying to calculate where you're going to be. Oh, I might do this, I might do that, but it shows you where you're going to be in relation to the system. Am I going to get in front of that? You can't calculate in your head, oh, well, actually, the breeze dropped down to 4 knots, so we only traveled this far for that, for 6 hours. And so now we're not as far as what we thought, it's very clever. It's, and it's using all the weather models as well. And so you can see all the routes and you can see if they're all doing the same thing, well, then the weather models think that the same thing's going to happen. If they're doing a bunch of different things, well, then you want to look at why, what's going on, what's happening here, that these models are all doing different things. And so, you can look at all the different parameters and work out why that is.
So you showed me one a few weeks ago, and I think it was somebody sailing from Canary Islands across to the Caribbean, I think. And what you did, it was awesome, right? It was absolutely awesome. So you pulled up the weather routing, and it showed a chart or a map of headings that you should take depending on different models. So one model said go this way, and one model, and then 2 models said you should both go the same direction. And to put it all in perspective, so it knows the wind speed all the way across, right? And what the wind direction is going to be. It's all predicted. And then it says, okay, at this point, your boat will be going this fast. And at this point, your boat will be going this fast. So your boat will end up here on a highly calculated model. And so it'll know there. And then it knows the wind is going to be changing and a system is going to be coming through. And so you could see it wasn't a straight line, right? It was a kind of a zigzaggy thing through all the systems to get you over to, I think it was Antigua, I think you said. So look, it was just a miracle unfolding in front of my eyes to see that happening to that level of calculation. And there is no way that the best sailor on the planet could beat that. I mean, how do they know where they're going to be? I mean, you could be absolutely useless sailor and beat a very fast sailor just by knowing how to do all this, right? That was awesome.
Yeah, and that does happen in the racing side of things. Someone will use the tools and use them well, and that they could. You're right. They could beat anyone. Because it will position you to take advantage of that change. Or this front, or make sure that you keep up with that system, or and at least it's actually doing more than that as well. Let's say you're crossing the Gulf Stream, it's going to use it to your advantage, and it's also going to show you where you are in relation to that. So, having that sort of information at your fingertips is super powerful. And then you can actually, when there's a new, the weather models are updating every 12 hours, and so after the weather's updated, you run your routing again, and it gives you a new route from where you are at that time. And so you're always getting the latest information, because probably something we should even just mention now, that your best forecast is the newest one. You don't want to be relying on a 4-day-old forecast. We want the latest information with that snapshot of the world's weather put into the model and recalculated, because things change, and there can be any error in that model run 3 days ago will actually grow as time goes on. And so that's why we always want to be updating our weather routing and looking at the latest forecasts.
Right. And so you just sort of dropped a little hint there, was that you could cross the Gulf Stream or any stream, the East Australian current, as Nemo went through, right?
Yes.
It adds the current into the weather and takes that into account. So it knows the current's going this way and the weather's going this way and wind's going this way, and it'll calculate all of that, right?
Yeah. And I think the really important thing there as well is that you can see what's going on, that well, this is actually when I'm going to get to there. Do I want to be there then? So, that, in that situation, we have another tool, which is called a departure planning tool. And you can run that departure planner. You could say, well, okay, I want to leave, if I leave tomorrow, or I leave the next day, or the next day, or the next day, and it will run the routes for you for each of those days. And then it'll show you them all on the map. But the real way to use that is that you can look at it and go, okay, if I leave on day 3, I actually get 90% reaching and 10% downwind. But if I left on day 1 or 2, I've got 50% upwind and 50% reaching or something like that.
Which
and there's going to be 4 meter swells if I leave on day 1 or 2. So I'm sailing upwind and I've got these huge swells. But if I leave on day 3 or 4, I've got I'm running with there's only 2 meter swells, but I'm going with it as well. And it just makes a huge difference, difference to your trip. You don't want to be, something we talk about a lot is you don't want to be sailing to a schedule. That's when bad things happen, is when people say, well, I'm leaving on this day. You want to leave when the weather tells you to leave. You want to find the weather window that's going to be best for you, so that everyone, has a nice time. We're out there to enjoy ourselves, right?
Well, and exactly. And so, if you're going to run your crew through the night beating into the wind and 3 meter swells, that's not a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, and, you can use all this stuff to actually get more enjoyment from your boat. You spend, whether you're chartering a boat or whether you own it or whatever, or you're a crew on a boat, whatever it is, you want to get the most out of it. You want to have the most enjoyment. You don't want to, bad experiences take a long time to get past. You want your family to be safe and to enjoy it. And so with these tools, there's no reason you can't achieve that.
Well, and guess what? it keeps your family sailing with you. So if you beat up your family and they don't like it, chances are you're never going to take your family out again, right? Especially the kids.
Yeah, that could be expensive.
Yeah, yeah. A very expensive boat sits in the slip all the time and doesn't go out. So look, if I could sum it all up, it's like, what you've got really is a time machine in your pocket with this. You can go forward in time and look at what's going on and make some decisions based on, that. I wish we could do that in our life, right? What career should I take? Should I make this stupid decision or make that stupid decision? You've got a time machine right in your pocket with this thing. This is awesome. Look, that is absolutely cool. And I just want to remind everybody, if you're listening to this inside the Skipper small keel boat or the Skipper large keel boat, bareboat charter course, or our global weather course, we will embed a promo code so that you get 3 months of the professional version of Predict Wind for free. Just so that you can start to experience this. And again, look, it's so that you can be safe out there and have a tool that you can make the right decision. So we're pretty darn excited about that. So Nick, I think how are you doing? Are we you got everything across? Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
Yeah,
I think we're good. I think we've got most stuff out there. I
Yeah.
mean, the only other thing that we probably actually have covered it. That seamanship always comes first. Like you use all this stuff so that then you can be a better person. Better sailor. So.
Right, and I use the word prudence. That's one of my favorite words, right?
Yeah.
So if you are going to do a long distance trip or overnight or maybe 5 or 6 hours, the prudent thing to do is to know what the weather's going to be doing and have the best information at your fingertips. And so I would just wrap all this up in prudence. That's one of my favorite words. And the other word that we're very much that we're big on at Nautic is competence, right? You if you're not competent, you shouldn't be going out. You should have a professional skipper with you. So this is knowing the weather and knowing how to read it and just understanding the weather and what's going to happen is just part of being a competent sailor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right. I think. You did touch on polar, and we do address polar in our electronic navigation course. So, but essentially. A polar plot or a polar map of your boat just basically tells you how fast your boat is going at this wind angle with this amount of wind speed. And so it'll show you exactly what's going on there. And it's pretty cool. Every boat has its own polar. Every boat model, I should say, has its own polar. And then what I even saw inside your app is you could say, well, you know what, that's great, but I'm not that good of a sailor and I probably won't be looking at the sail trim all the time, so let's dial me down to about 80% of a good sailor, and then the weather route recalculated right in front of my eyes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you can change that polar percentage to whatever you want and run your route based on that, and it's really important to get that right, because then every other part of it's right. And so we even have a function in there where you can say, well, actually I don't like sitting around when there's no wind. I'm going to motor. If the wind, if my boat speed falls below 8 knots, I'm going to motor. I'm going to turn the motor on, and then when we get back into the breeze, I'll flick that off and we'll start sailing again.
So that's in the algorithm, right?
Yeah. So you can turn that on and off, and you can adjust the speed. So
yeah. No, look, it's totally cool. I think you've convinced everybody. Just go out and get it, and you're going to get it for free anyway. So why wouldn't you? Okay. Look, thanks so much, Nick. And you'd talked about you've got some meteorologists on staff. So let's do another podcast another day with some meteorologists, and we'll talk about frontal systems. What is a front, and why is it called a front, and where do they come from, and what does 500 millibar Mach mean, and all this stuff. Let's talk, and what's going to happen when a cold front meets a warm front. What should you expect, and why should you stay away from different types of systems. So that would be awesome. So anybody listening in, just look up.
That would be really cool. Yeah. So Jack Catsby is the guy's name that would be the one that would do that.
Yep.
He's in Australia. He's in Melbourne.
Okay.
And he actually is involved with a lot of our modelling. Okay. So he's a climate scientist, and also does a lot of he worked with John at Alingi, and he's one of the people that's responsible for the model development.
Oh, cool. So everybody, we're going to have a climate scientist on one of these days. Now, is Jack an Aussie or a Kiwi though?
He's actually American.
Oh,
he just lives in Australia.
Well, I don't know whether that's an insult to anybody or not. All right. Well, okay. We'll forgive him anyway. All right.
He's an awesome dude.
Okay. All right. Well, I do know a few Aussies and they are pretty good. So we'll have some, we are having some fun here, right? Okay. So it's just that we beat them in rugby all the time and it makes them really mad. Why? Why do they get so mad all the time we beat them? Anyway, all right. Nick, look, thanks so much. This was an awesome podcast. I hope everybody really felt like they got something out of it, and we'll look forward to getting Jack and yourself on another time. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having us, and I hope everybody enjoys having a go at using Predict Wind and finding out a bit more about it. I think once you get in there and you get involved, you'll really enjoy it. And thanks so much to Nordic Ed for giving people this opportunity to learn about it. So thank you.
Yep, that's awesome. All right. Ciao, everybody.